Okay, one of our questions was to graph this system of inequalities. And I'm going to graph this on paper first, and then graph this on the program right here, MyLabs Plus. So we have x plus y is less than or equal to 4, and x is greater than or equal to 1. So I'm going to go off here, and I'm going to write this x plus y, and I think it was less than or equal to, yep, and the other is greater than or equal to. So less than or equal to 4, x greater than or equal to 1. Okay, so let's do the first one. Let's graph just the equation first. This will give us the boundary line, and then we have to figure out which side to shade on. So we'll subtract x from both sides. We have y equals negative 1x plus 4. So instead of just writing negative x, I'm going to write negative 1x. That tells us the slope is negative 1 over 1 with a y-intercept of 0, 4. So we're going to start at 4 then. Put a dot there. Go down 1, right 1 for another dot. And I'm just going to continue to do this, following this pattern just so I can draw a line a little bit better. And I'll follow the pattern in the opposite direction too. And then I can draw my line, and it's a solid line because it says greater than or equal to. Alright, now I need to figure out which side to shade on. So if we tested the point 0, 0 in the inequality, x plus y is less than or equal to 4, we would get 0 plus 0 less than or equal to 4. 0 less than or equal to 4 is true. What that means is that the point 0, 0 has to actually come from the solution region, the shaded region. So here's the point 0, 0. That means we're going to be shading toward that point. Alright, I'm not going to shade the whole thing right now because we'll be looking at the overlapping region. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just lightly shade a little bit here, and then I'll erase what's not included. So if you were just graphing that one right there, that's what it would look like. Now, the x greater than or equal to 1, that one's a lot easier. First of all, if you graph the boundary line, x equals 1, that's a vertical line that crosses at x equals 1. So here's our vertical line right here. That's x equals 1. When it says x has to be greater than or equal to 1, first of all, the or equal makes it a solid line. Greater than or equal means the x coordinates have to be more than 1. So those are all the points to the right. Okay, now if we look at these, the overlapping region where the two lines overlap is, or I'm sorry, where the two shaded regions overlap is in here. So this is the area that's going to get shaded. The rest of it we're going to erase. So I'll shade that in pretty good. So I only shade in this area here. And your final graph should not include any of these other. So we can either just, make sure we don't shade them on the final product, or we'll erase them for now. So anything outside of those. Alright. So let's go to the MyLabs Plus and let's graph those lines. Okay, so we do this in a few different ways here. First we're going to graph one of the lines, and here's where you determine whether you're going to do a solid or a dashed line. We actually need solid lines both times. So we have to put our first point at 4, and then the next point down 1, right 1. Okay, so that gives us that point right there. So we're good. Now we graph the line x equals 1. So put a point at x equals 1, and then make sure we put a point right above it to make a vertical line. Now we determine a shading region. And you kind of just put this paint can over the region you want to shade. I want to shade in here. We'll save it. We'll check it. Looks good. All right. Let's look at another one here. We have x plus 1 is less than or equal to 1, and x minus 1 is less than or equal to 2. Or x plus y, I'm sorry. And x minus y less than or equal to 2. All right, so first, let's graph the line. So y equals negative 1x plus 1. Slope is negative 1 over 1. Y-intercept is 0, 1. It's going to be a solid line when we graph the line. So we can actually just plot that right now. Down 1 over 1. When you go to MyLabs Plus, you only need to put one additional point. And you follow the same pattern, going up in the opposite direction, just to make your line. We probably don't need all of this, but I'm going to graph enough so that we can make sure we get the whole shaded region in there. All right. Okay, and that's actually the graph of x plus y equals 1, that line. Now, if we were to test the point 0, 0, we would substitute 0 for x plus 0 for y less than or equal to 1. 0 less than or equal to 1 is true. So we got to keep in mind that the point 0, 0 right here is going to be on the shaded region. So this gets shaded like this. So we shade towards that point. Now let's look at the next one here. All right, so we have x minus y equals 2. Okay, we're graphing the line, you got to remember. So subtract x from both sides. Negative y I'm going to write as negative 1y equals negative x I'm going to write as negative 1x, and then move the plus 2 over. Now we divide through by negative 1 because we need to solve for y. So it equals 1x minus 2. In this case, the slope is 1 over 1 with a y-intercept of 0, negative 2. So here we start at negative 2 and go up 1, right 1. Okay, so we go ahead and graph the line here. This is x minus y equals 2. All right, now we can use the same test point of 0, 0. So let's test the point here. So using 0, 0 as a test point, 0 minus 0 should be less than or equal to 2. 0 is less than or equal to 2 is true. So we would shade on the side that 0, 0 comes from. So in this case, we're shading above the line. Now, if I were just graphing this 1, it would include all the way up to my boundary line. Now, when I graph the system, I want to find out where they overlap. And here I've used two different colors, red and blue. So where the red and the blue overlap is the region you want to shade. So it's everything here. I'm going to use green. So this would be our shaded region. So I'll fill that in really good for you. All right. And then if we want to make it neater, we go ahead and we erase the other stuff. So technically these things, even though it would be the shaded region for one of our inequalities, it is not the shaded region for our system of inequalities. Same thing here. That should still be there though. Alright, this was x minus y equals 2. Okay, so that'll be our shaded region. So let's go ahead and graph these two lines on MyLabs Plus. First, it's y equals negative 1x plus 1. solid line. First point at 1, down 1, right 1. Okay. Next is 1x minus 2. Solid line. Start at negative 2, up 1, right 1. Okay. We've already graphed it on paper, so we know what this looks like. So now the shaded region just needs to be filled in. Save and check. Fantastic. All right.